Day two, just getting a little bit different. I've been doing this for the last few years, just getting the guys out to get into a test. There's been testing yesterday, testing today as well. More stuff in the gym, video, but just want to get a base and see where we're at from a conditioning standpoint.
Kako was saying that they were, he was about to go to a meeting about the system. He was assuming, could you just describe what you want in your system?
The whole thing?
The whole thing. I want details.
There's, as I think mentioned before, you know, you watch everybody I think is a little bit different with the way they play the game, but when you watch the teams that find success, they're pushing the pace, they're pushing forechecks, they're pushing pucks with speed, they're quick to defend. Everything has a pace and a speed to it, and I think when we get going tomorrow, as I mentioned yesterday, when we actually put the pucks out on the ice and we start going with pucks, there'll be a learning. I think in the first couple days there's going to be a learning curve on where we're supposed to be and where we're supposed to go, and that slows it down a little bit because you have to think a little bit more about what we're doing. If something's new for the first time, it doesn't go as fast as it will on day 10. And that's why the ramp inside of the camp as we're pushing towards that first game, I think is really important. But to get the information out there, like I said yesterday, to get the information out tomorrow about how we want to move one direction and then the next day how we want to move in a different direction, I want it to be with pace and speed. And so I think we'll be bumping into each other a little bit tomorrow. I think there'll be a little bit of confusion. I think there'll be some stops with the whistle to explain some things, but eventually I think we'll get to a point where we understand it and we can really start to push that pace and that speed. But from what I've seen, you know, my knowledge, like I said, my knowledge of successful teams and what you witness of teams that make it far, they do everything quick, they do it with pace, they do it with attitude. And, you know, like I said, it's a working mindset.
How cognizant are you of the fact that a good bulk of this team, the core, I guess you could say, has been through a couple of different coaches now in the last few years and have had to make the adjustments to coaches' different systems, and
yeah.
how do you I guess approach that?
So I think I said that I don't change much with what I'm doing. I come in with a plan to put a system in place, to get thoughts out there, to watch it, to practice it, to watch it, to use video, to take the exhibition games, to go back at them, to try and get better, to try and improve. And so I understand exactly what you're saying. And there was questions. We had a video session, a couple guys stayed afterwards asking questions, which is great. They want more information, and because it is new. And so some of the things are different from years past. I think all coaches vary a little bit, but they're also really smart players as well. And their knowledge and the hockey IQ of guys that make it to the National Hockey League, I think are, you know, above average. They're elite the way they think the game, and so I think they pick things up pretty quick.
Peter, I know you've spoken obviously to every guy to get to know them a little bit, but how important is it to have a personal relationship with each player as opposed to just saying, this is what I want, go do it, but, you know, to have that relationship with a guy?
I think that varies too, depending on coaches and what their mindset is and what their philosophy is. If you're asking me, I do think it's important, but I also think it's important to establish that relationship so that you almost have a truth between you and the player. You get to know them and they get to know me, so that when things are going good, you can tell them exactly what's going good. But on the flip side, if things aren't going the way you want, you have to be able to communicate that. You have to be able to fix problems and answer, you know, with the players in, I call it, both sides of the fence. So for me, I don't think you want to sit there and stay down and be their buddy too long. And I don't think you want to stay down on the other side of the fence just kicking tail the whole day long either. So I do think that middle line and that relationship part is really important in order to establish both sides of it.
The last few coaches here, and when asked about goaltending, they say, it's Benny.
Yeah.
You know, it's Benny.
Yeah.
Do you take that same perspective, that approach, or do you coach the goalies?
As far as coaching goes, I've never played the position. I would think to know how to coach the goalie. And so I don't think most head coaches do, unless they were probably a goalie and grew up in that environment. When it comes to decisions with regard to practice or what we're doing in practice, or if it comes to who's starting and how many games they play, and when it comes to communication with the goaltender, everything goes through me. And so I have other coaches in place. I have a goalie coach, and we have a guy that is going to try and work with the defensemen, and we have the guy that's going to kind of head the power play or the penalty kill, and the systems and the team run through me. But at the end of the day, Larry, everything comes back through me. If there's a decision to be made on a starting goalie, while I will consult and confer, I'm an inclusive coach. I like to sit with my coaches and talk and cooperate and find out what's best for the team. There's often times where something comes up and the room could be split on what to do. That decision comes back to me.
And just to follow, your other assistants you've had relationships with, you've worked with.
Yeah.
Benny you hadn't, so is, have you spent a fair amount of time with him in this lead up, and you expect that it's important, the kind of relationship you have with him?
Me and Benny?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's really important. From my dealings with Benny so far, and it's at the beginning of that. Our relationship is really good. We made it a point to get the coaches together because, to your point, I didn't know him that well. And you're right, I did get a chance to work with Phil Housley for a year in Nashville. And so there are relationships that are a little bit more down the road with me. And that's why we got together as coaches, and we made it a point to go spend a few days together to get to know each other, and even the spouses, just to get to know the families a little bit and spend time. We talked hockey all day long, but then we went out to dinner, and I get a chance to sit next to Benny and Benny's wife, and so it was really good just to establish those relationships. So there's other people in there too that I didn't get a chance to work with so much. So I'm trying to work on that so that the coaches are on the same page. But I will tell you, again, some of it's newer than others. I'm really happy with the people that we have in place here. There were people that were here last year that I'm now working with. I'm really excited about the work that they do just in the short time that I've got to work with them.
Peter, in the small picture, obviously you're dealing with the day-to-day of training camp. This is day 2, first day on the ice. But in the bigger picture, what's the read you're getting from the players? A lot of veteran players,
Yeah.
or even younger players are now in their second NHL contracts, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're not talking about young rookies in there. What's the read you're getting from these guys on what they feel and what they expect from themselves?
I think that the players want to be pushed like they want. I think all players want that. I think teams come into the year and they have a thought process of becoming Stanley Cup champions, right? That's probably everybody's goal and agenda. And with that, I think that there's a process that goes with that. When you don't experience the success, even for me, when you don't experience the success that you wanted the previous year, it just dials you in. It makes you want more. It makes you focus more on what it is that you need to do. And so I think that we've got a good group of players that are focused and that want to be successful. And so for me as a coach, that's a really good thing.
Peter, how's data and analytics factored into the way that you build your system or tweak your system throughout the years? I mean, it's obviously changed a lot since you started.
It changed a lot, and it continues to change and evolve and become better. I love the information. So I want analytics to give me information that I can use to look at to help me make my team better. Inside of that, I don't think that you can get just completely hung up on numbers. I do think that there's a feel to the game. There's my eyes, my knowledge of a person or a player. I'll give you, for instance, if your top centerman is 65% in the face-off circle or 62% in the face-off circle, and he's having a tough night, and there's one face-off that has to be win, and it's his strong side, and you believe in this one person, you don't have to just say, I'm going to go against it. You may, and I think you have to take that information in and analyze it and then make a hockey decision on what you want to do. And so I do agree that it continues to evolve. The information is awesome, things that I could never think of or come up with a way to formulate. And from there, I think you still have to take that information, you have to use it, and you still have to make hockey decisions as well.
On the systems, Miko was talking about today, he seemed excited to learn about some of the stuff that he said they had trouble with when they were playing Washington the last few years. He specifically mentioned the neutral zone. So I was curious if you could describe it all, like what was it about your system that made it so difficult for them to advance pucks through the neutral zone?
I mean, do most coaches come to New York and put their system out on in the New York Post? Like I can see Larry with a back page picture here, and the X's and O's of where the guys are supposed to be in the neutral zone. And so,
Amazing that
I
does
will
happen,
say,
actually. Every coach
yeah,
has done
no,
that.
I know, yeah. All right, we'll bring the board in now. I have played. There's times when we're more aggressive in the neutral zone, and I think Mika might be referring to the times when we're not as aggressive. And so for me, back to I think the first question, I'd like to be aggressive in the neutral zone when we can, and I'd like to force the issue. But there's times when there's no sense in like losing guys and pushing players up the ice, and so we go into a certain neutral zone defense. I mean, I've been doing it for a long time without putting it on the board here. We've been doing it for a long time, and it might be maybe not the hardest thing, but the thing that's a little bit more difficult to pick up inside of the system than other things, because there's some positioning that goes with that. Not tomorrow, but 2 days from now, we'll like I said, we're gonna take that, work on it, put it in, and try to get things just in place in the first 2 days, so that when we go into that first exhibition game, even though Mika's not playing in that game, in that first exhibition game, whoever is playing, they'll have an understanding. And if it does go into a counter in the neutral zone that's a little bit slower, guys will be in position. We'll either do it right, we'll do it wrong, but regardless, that's where we take it back. We throw it into the video room and we show everybody and say, hey, we could have done this here in this situation.
Peter,
Okay, a couple more.
any thoughts on, I know it's early, but overall your team speed and your physicality, like what you see?
I mean, I'm going out there tomorrow. Like, our job is what I mentioned is to, I think every team can play exactly what you just said, with speed and with physicality and with tenacity and, you know, speed and attitude, and we can compete hard on pucks. We can have a great work ethic. That's what I'm looking for. And so that, I think, is something that you work on every day in practice. It becomes like your habit, your identity. And once you realize that what you're doing and you're finding success with that, that's your standard on what you're looking for day to day. And so it's not always perfect, but that's where you want to push all the time. And so it's really early in camp, and I'm looking forward to getting out there and start working on these things that you mentioned.
All right. Last one. You spoke yesterday about Lafreniere and the right side and
Yep.
all that stuff, but more broadly, the young players. There's
Yep.
a group of them now that are 3-4 years into
Right.
the league. You know, how do you view, if it's ongoing development or whatever you might call it, them sort of stepping into more prominent roles? Do you view that as something where they need the opportunities to continue to grow, and is that something the team needs to continue to grow?
I think that those opportunities are going to present themselves in training camp. I agree. I think maybe they all had their best years last year. And they're young. They're in their young 20s, and now they're a year older. They're going to continue to climb, and you'd like to see their careers and their impact in a team also. You'd like to see that climb as well. With that, you're going to need opportunity. And with that opportunity, you need to make the most of it. But that's training camp in general. That's just not for the young players that you're talking about. That's for everybody. But certainly, you brought up those players. That opportunity presents itself. They've got to knock the door down.